It started.
No. Not red.
Oh, good.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Okay, now we're good.
Okay, we've got just one announcement from me. I'm not sure if he's joined yet, but we've got a new golf advisory committee member, Cameron Christ. I do see him on. Cam, are you here?
I have just joined. Hello, everyone.
Awesome. Welcome. So, Cam, I'll let you turn this over to you and kind of let you tell us a little bit about yourself, just kind of some brief general information and, how you're affiliated with Wichita Golf.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I'm Cameron Christ. I grew up in Wichita, went to Mays, graduated Wichita State, work in healthcare. Love golf, always have. Played for about the last 10 years at the Wichita Public Courses. Was a member out at Reflection for a while, then at Rolling, but now a member of the public golf courses. And I have been an acquaintance of Tori Deathridge for, at least 10, 11 years. She reached out and asked if I wanted to join and be a part of the Wichita Golf and help. I said yes. Here I am.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
So, no public comments today. I don't believe the minutes are ready quite yet, but you can view the recording of any meeting on YouTube. So we'll go to new items for consideration, fee increases. So Troy, I'll let you take it away.
So a couple items. With the passes, we have shared with everybody that every year there's a 2% increase with the passes. And so we put that information out. Hopefully you guys all saw it because we sent it to all the park board members. Each one of the golf staff members have been putting it out on their bulletin board. We sent emails out to all the past members. We've been putting it on social media. So it shouldn't be a surprise. It happens every year because it's in the contract and the agreement that was ratified by council. So in regards to that, though, Applehans, she just shared with me that we got the final closeouts for the amount of revenues we got for the passes for the month of June. For the first time, we hit 100,000, so that was great. We have 1,474 members. Now, of that, over 50% are seniors, and we've all discussed this, and we think we all agree, unless we want to have some more discussion, that that's probably underpriced, and there's some capacity there for increasing that, and maybe some of the other passes as well. So we wanted to start that conversation. We've talked about it in the past, and I have taken it to the city manager and council, but the question keeps coming up as to are we going to have somebody else operate the courses? Are we going to have a third-party operator? There was some discussion at one time of selling the golf course, and so all those things were impacting that decision. I would like to go ahead and put a proposal together and start putting something together so if the request for proposal doesn't move forward and we're still operating, that we're ready to go ahead and move forward with changing some of those fees for those passes. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at and what I wanted to talk about and see what kind of support or discussion we need to have.
Okay. Any questions for Troy?
Just one, and this is Niall, Troy, and I'm just, how does do you think the impact of the discussions between Wichita and Sedgwick County on the potential merger of Parks and Recreation have on your thinking as far as increasing fees before, or whether you think this is just some pipe dream down the road, pie in the sky, or do you think this has wheels and it's something we should be aware of as we decide?
Well, first and foremost, since the golf division is enterprise, it's not at all connected to anything that's happening with the rest of the department or any kind of possibility that's happening with the county. What's being discussed with the county is still pretty much high level. Nobody's really made any decisions yet, but primarily none of it's really anything that's really having a strong funding impact or economic impact on the operations. The county will still operate and maintain their 3 parks, and actually it's 2.5 parks because one is just open space that they don't do any maintenance at all. It's just a large 100-acre space that nobody even uses it other than for some horseback riding. But they would still have their budget. They would still have staff and employees managing these 3 areas. The only difference is that we would do programming in there. And so we would do running races. We could have special events. We could work or use some of their tennis courts. So that's kind of what that is really leading towards. To me, it's not a whole full-on merger where we're actually telling them or controlling those employees.
So you don't think the golf division, if it ever happened, that the golf division would go along, would be a part of that transfer?
Well, it would stay here underneath parks. But like I mentioned, it's enterprise, so it's not going to have any impact from the budget, from a budget perspective or from a financing perspective.
Troy, this is Nancy. Would it have any impact on the management of the courses?
No, and like I mentioned, the idea is the county is still going to have their own staff, and the county is still going to manage their own parks. The only difference is that we would have access into programming those parks, which has nothing to do with golf.
Okay.
So that's
the original report, I had heard something about golf courses, so that's.
Oh, what did you hear? I want to hear. I love rumors.
It was just a quick radio blurb, and I don't even remember what it was, but that the city and county were looking at mergers that would affect the parks and the golf courses. And that was about that it said. Is that what you heard, Niall?
Yeah, it was in the paper.
Oh, I didn't see it in the paper. I'd heard it on.
There was an article in the paper that included items that were discussed, and golf was definitely listed as one of those items.
So what did they say about golf?
Same thing you said about everything else, that this is, just as you said, high-level discussions, and that this is something that's going to be looked at along with the tennis courts, the golf, the whole Parks and Recreation division in total. But again, this is just a discussion.
So when Nancy, when the radio kind of tells these things, they look at the department title and the things that we do. So obviously golf is part of that, but they don't realize and what they're talking about in regards to an enterprise fund. And the discussions I've had with the city manager, the discussions I've had with the county folks, have not had any discussion whatsoever of golf changing underneath this model. So we would still be part of the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So going back.
Any more questions for Troy? Go ahead, Troy.
Go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead, Eddie.
I was just going to ask, what are we looking for a recommendation, or do we just need to receive and file this?
So what I mentioned earlier is, if you guys feel supportive of looking at some small, very modest increases to the pass system, and I think that's where I mentioned earlier, I think there's some capacity for us to increase some of that, to increase some of our revenue. Of course, we know every time we make a dollar, we're putting that dollar or trying to make that dollar go back into the golf courses. Last year, we're in the black by $600,000, and last report, and I'll share with you guys, it looks like we're going to be a little bit further in the black this year. So hopefully that will continue. So if I have you guys' blessing to keep looking forward at making some adjustments to the passes. If you guys have any suggestions as to what that could be, I know we've talked about it before, and we've also mentioned that those passes are probably underpriced. I would love to get some direction, and if nothing else, just to have the support to start making some suggestions of what those changes could be, and we can bring them back next month.
And you mentioned that this is in everybody's contract, everybody's membership deal that they've signed and have accepted, and we've been very transparent about that process, correct?
This is in addition to that. That 2% is automatic every year, every anniversary year. So that part is automatic. But even on top of that, we are still very much underpriced with the passes. Particularly the seniors are getting a great deal. But even if we can come up with a way to come up with $25,000 worth of extra revenue, that goes back to the golf course.
I have a question. About 8 or 20 months ago, we did have a conversation, and my memory was we did have a recommendation for both increased card fees and the increased membership fee. Did we put a dollar on that?
I do believe we did, and like I mentioned, I moved that forward to the city manager and the council, and that was at a time when they were looking at selling McDonald, and then we took it back again when we were looking at the request for proposal for First Tee to operate the golf courses. So they didn't want to change anything while that was happening.
Well, what I'm wondering is what was the recommendation so that we could use that as a base conversation.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of where I wanted to start from.
Do you remember what it was that the number?
I do not. I just wanted to get today your guys' direction as to whether we still want to do that, and if you have any predisposed ideas of what kind of increases you're looking for.
Well, Troy, I'd like to see what the proposal was in the past. A little surprised that having this on the agenda that we don't have that information.
Well, before I jump into it, I wanted to make sure that that's something you guys wanted to pursue.
Well, I want to know what's proposed, but yeah, sure. I want to see what's on your mind and look at what that impact might be projected to be.
Okay.
Just so for historic perspective, since not everybody was here when we made the switch to the membership program, the figure that we had for the senior at $55 was derived from finance department as a number that would allow us to switch over without, because at the time we were on a yearly pass system, or the finance thought that in order not to get pushback, that 55 figure would be somewhat akin to what they were paying under the pass system, but that we always intend to push that up at point. And what I would kind of throw out to the committee members is it's a kind of a delicate dance to make sure that we are pricing it right for three things in my mind. Number one is trying to make sure we meet the revenue needs of the enterprise fund. Number two is make sure that we are pricing ourselves to the point where we will lose memberships and kind of be self-feeding. But number three is we have need for upgrading the expenditures for especially capital projects, and I think that with an eye toward that, coming up with a kind of a comprehensive figure that basically tells people, by the way, we may increase your the membership fees, but this is where the money would go.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because a good example is from the $600,000 worth of proceeds that we have from 2020. A couple weeks ago, I went to council, and we're spending $250,000 on the ponds over at MAC. And what that's going to do is going to reduce the water usage, which saves us money. And so hopefully that will be a payback in about 10 years. And also, using less water is always environmentally a smart thing to do. Actually using less treated water. And then $100,000 over at Tex to repair the roof and upgrade the HVAC. So these are perfect examples. I have a dozen projects that I could come up with and say, I need $100,000 for this, I need $250,000 for that, and this is where these revenues would go towards. So that's exciting. I'm really kind of happy to see that we can look at going beyond just what we're making right now as we increase some of the costs, increase some of the fees, and those fees go back into the golf courses on certain projects. One of the biggest one is we need to update irrigation at all the courses, and that's a big ticket. So yeah, we can definitely do that. If you guys want me to, we'll go back and look at what was proposed. And this includes the golf carts too, because we also talked about golf carts are also underpriced as well. We could probably make $1 or $2 more off of those. And then I can kind of project what those revenues might be and compare those to capital projects to make improvements to the courses. I think that's a great philosophy.
One last thing is, while you're doing that, Troy, is keep in mind that there's the I was going to say 30,000 view, but more like 300-foot view. But there's the actual maybe some expenditures that they would actually see, like, and I'm just going to throw something out, and that is like improving the sand traps, things that would affect their round that they could actually see their money going for. While we do the rest. I mean, not an exclusion to the others, but just something that makes it easier for them to feel okay about paying the additional fees.
Sure. And some things are just a priority. I mean, replacing and upgrading an HVAC is a priority. Replacing a roof, without a roof, we don't have a clubhouse. So those are obviously priorities. But if and when we can squeeze in some of the other things that are more the playability aspects of the courses, I think that's doable as well. Yep.
Is there a list of items that those musts, the HVAC, the roof, over the next 10 years that is going to be required? Is that broken down already, like a 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan?
I don't have it broken down per year, but I have a list of capital projects that need to be addressed. Yes.
Can that be shared?
Most definitely.
Thank you.
We shared it
Nancy?
in the past.
Just some of my thoughts are, I love that Wichita golf is affordable. I do think that we're underpriced. I think we want to keep it affordable. Increasing the cart fee is a simple no-brainer. $1, I would say that would, and if everything's going up 2% every year, we are getting that increased income also. I want to keep it a bargain because we've already lost a golf course. So that's a major loss to the golf community. And I don't want to make it so high that people play less, but then this is a balancing act because we're also needing to, the courses are crowded, they are full. And that's why, we had this closeouts for June of $100,000. And I don't think that number's going to get any smaller this year for quite a few months. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. We don't want to lose golfers, but we want to increase accessibility. So
yeah, it's finding that sweet spot. And I think what Richard's talking about is making sure that there's justification behind it. And
absolutely.
with that is kind of showcasing what your dollar is getting you. And so that value, when you pay that extra dollar, you're excited about it, or you say, yeah, I think that extra dollar for the golf cart is going to get me new golf carts in 5 years. So,
right. And I think irrigation is something that every golfer will see. That's tangible, even if you don't think it is. It is very tangible in every way. Getting those sprinkler systems updated and effective and efficient.
Yep.
So I guess I would think to go across the board and just say add $5 to everything and then have 2% per year.
And what I could do also is show kind of a different breakdown. So whether it's a 5% increase, here's what a 10% increase is, here's what a 15% increase is for each one of the passes. What is the projected revenue for that? And what could those dollars go towards? So I could come up with a breakdown system for that. And then
that project list, I think I think it was developed before I was ever around. So I'm sure there's plenty of updates. And then several months ago, we had asked all the pros at each of the courses to give us a list of what they wanted. And of course, that roof at Tex was top of the list. Right. But each of those courses, so I think there's a number of things that need to be added to that original list that was developed a while back.
Well, just to let you know, some of those items on the list that the pros provided have already been addressed. So some of them
it would be good to see what those were, just see the checklist of what's been knocked off.
Sure.
Are there breakdowns? Because if you increase the price, I'd want to know what the breakdown is for new members versus in retention of members, like a percentage annually. Is that something that we have?
So I can definitely come up with what is our retention rate for the past 2 years with the passes. We can even break that down. I think we have data per month. So Applehans could probably look at how many new memberships we have, how many did we lose, what's the total, and that could give us retention rates or increased rates or decreased rates per month. So we can come up with that. But it's been steady increasing, even though we've lost some folks that said, you know what, the pass isn't what I need, or they moved, or there was something changed in their life, and we've had some folks not continue with the pass. But because it's such a good deal, we have a lot of folks that are adding on to the pass system.
I'm assuming the folks that move are outliers. Do we have a percentage of those? Do we have that data?
I
don't think we have that specific, no.
I think another big category is just people who are not going to get the value out of it because they aren't playing as much golf for whatever reason. It might be this season, like that.
Let me take a few notes.
I hope just from the grumpy old man standpoint that there's the seniors, you raise their fees. It doesn't matter if you raise it by a dollar or a nickel, or you can justify by irrigation or maintenance or new roofs. You're never going to get any kind of positive response from them. their built-in cynicism is just, going to kick in right off the bat. And they'll grumble all the way through it and pay it and come back next week and pay it and come back next week and pay it. So don't look for.
Right, so they're going to get their money's worth.
Yeah, they're going to get their money's worth, but they're not going to admit it to you. They're just going to grumble about it.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. It's whether I get a email passed to me from the city manager or one of the council members is that I'm a senior, I'm on fixed income, and my golf needs to be affordable. So going back to what Nancy was talking about, it has to be that sweet spot where it's still affordable to them. And we can compare that. There's comparisons to other golf courses, and particularly the senior passes are way inexpensive. They're getting a great deal. So, all right, I have my assignment for next month.
Awesome. Any more questions or comments for Troy?
I just have just one. I don't know the history of passes. When did they start? What was the structure prior? Just so I can have a frame.
So I'll start first, and then I'm sure some of the other folks from the board might have some perspective as well. We were looking at ways of creating new revenue and having sustainable revenue throughout the year. So this idea came in regards to what some of the other fitness clubs or some of the other clubs have. They have they have a monthly fee for an annual pass, and that money comes directly out of their bank account. So that way we have a steady income, the same type of income that we could have in January as we would in July. Obviously, it's not going to be a straight line all the way across. But like I mentioned, just from the passes here in end of June, we got 100,000. So using that philosophy, we'll have $100,000 in December. We'll have $100,000 coming in January, even though nobody's playing that much golf. Or if like in February when we were below 30 degrees, we can estimate that we will probably get 100,000. So that's really beneficial. That's really kind of evens things out, helps me with payroll, helps me with other kind of expenses. So that was kind of part of the idea, and also just another way of bringing in new golfers and having them continue to come. Another part of it too was they get this great deal of coming in and playing golf, but then the other items of them paying for a cart, maybe having a few beers, eating at the snack bar, spending some money in the pro shop. There's those other ancillary revenues that come in as well. So the more times you come in, there's more opportunities for those ancillary revenues to come in as well. So that was kind of the basics, if I remember right. Mr. Shordorf, I think you really were involved with that. If there's anything that I missed or anything you want to add.
Well, I think you've captured it. I was actually on the board of the YMCA who uses a system like that, and very successfully. We have phenomenal wise. And the other catalyst was the fact that the pass system that we had at the time was killing us. I mean, you think that the system with the price now for the senior members, it was actually worse than that. So we were trying to get rid of the pass system and move it to a membership system. We the idea is to get people used to having to come out of their checking account every month, and after a while, the hope is that they just look at that as a benefit to them overall, and something that they want to include into their into their budgeted life. But as Troy said, the key also from the folks over at finance was to attack the other areas of potential revenue, which includes the concessions and card fees. And one of the things with that while we're talking about this, I just from a historical perspective is we also look at the possibility of having a tweak to the system that we have now through the park board, so that if we make a suggestion, and I understand, Troy, what you were saying about the reason for not getting suggested increase to the city council, but as a practical matter, honestly, over the years, we pass a lot of resolutions, they go to the park board, and then we never hear back at all. And I would like to have a system, if it's possible, where if we pass a resolution, then we get an answer. It's not just deep sixed, and that there's some mechanism that will allow that to either be rejected or to be immediately passed on, so that there's some accountability from the standpoint of our recommendations, something happening to them.
So I do recall, I don't know, it was about 5 months ago, 6 months ago, we had this conversation, and it kind of revolved a little bit in regards to hiring. And I took the motion from the Golf Advisory Committee and take it in writing to the city manager, and he responded back in writing. So I have made that commitment to have that conversation and that communication with the city manager, who's my boss, and also trying to inform the park board of this as well. So at the time, we had 2 members of the park board that were part of this committee, and I think Eddie knows that it's really important to make sure to pass on the items that happen in this committee to the overall park board. So even though it's probably not my place to say, but that's probably it on Eddie's shoulders, and I think he's gonna work on making that happen.
Can confirm.
Thanks for that. Mr.
Nancy?
Yes, along those lines, if could that become a standard agenda item, just a report item from, under this the section 3 continuation of prior business? If that could be one of our standard items on there, is just a communication update of things that were said at the park board and at the city council that affect us, or responses, reactions to what we have sent forward.
Sure, yeah, we could put that on the agenda as, I'd like that description of communication. So we can say communication to city council, city manager, park board.
Yeah, and then that would be also where we get the feedback from their responses. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I did respond on several emails back to the Golf Advisory Board about the questions in regards to hiring staff. So I got a written response from the city manager, and I did email it to everybody on the Golf Advisory Committee. So when the city manager said that he was not ready to start hiring, and then when he was giving me the permission to start hiring, I sent that email to everybody.
I may not be on your list.
You're on Penny's list.
Okay, well then I'll go back.
Penny does my emails to the committees.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember it either, Nancy. I don't remember seeing anything like that.
Okay, anything else? If not, we can move on to repair and equipment update. Troy?
Sure. So I'm going to share my screen really quick, and kind of, this is like 2 birds in 1 stone, kind of going backwards a little bit. Let me know when you guys see this.
Got it.
Okay.
Good.
So this is a PowerPoint that's going to the park board. Was June 15th. It has some other areas of the department that has some financial information. This is what I'm going to share this coming week to the park board. But here's where it's really interesting in regards to golf revenues. And so this is what I was talking about. Year to date up through May or June 1st. So here's the revenues for each one of the areas of golf. Golf admin, Auburn Hills, McDonald, Sim, and Tex. So we're looking at $1.6 million revenue to date from the end of May or beginning of June. It's too soon for me to get all of June because it's just the beginning of July. So here's
What is golf administration income? I mean, what is revenue golf administration? What does that mean?
Shanna, can you help me with that?
Yeah, so that is our web store that is processed through City Hall. Anything purchased online, gift cards, driving range season pass, lesson registration, tournament registration, that all comes through the golf admin.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
So here were the expenses at each one of those locations. And that gave us a net total of profit of $300,000 at the end of May. So that was pretty good. And here's what some of those expenses are. So payroll, contractuals, we got bank charges, software license, data charges, and some of the commodities. A lot of those commodities are repairs to the equipment or actual vegetation expenses for grass and turf and that kind of stuff. So we have right now in the golf replacement fund, there's a small percentage of the money that comes from each one of the T fees that goes into this replacement fund. So as of May 31st, we had $237,000. And this is what we spent earlier to get us to this balance. In 2020, we spent some money in October and September for some items, and then March of 21. So what I'm going to be doing is, I met with, let me backtrack a little bit. So I met with the superintendents. They gave me their list of priorities of what they need, and I wanted to spend some of this money. And obviously it's going to continue to grow, but we want to have a little bit of balance in there in case we need something. And so they gave me their top items, and from Tex and let's see, McDonald, each one of these courses gave me their top priority. So then we're going to actually purchase one fairway mower, two very large mowers that roughly cost about $60,000, and then a rough mower as well. So 4 items, one for each one of the golf courses, and we're going to spend roughly about $200,000. We're getting a huge discount because we're members or work with First Tee, and so Toro gives us a pretty good discount of about 20%. So that's going to come out, and so I wanted to make sure you guys knew that. The replacement fund has $237,000, and I'm going to be spending about $200,000 in the next 2 or 3 months. I'm going to go into council to ratify this in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's a whole process of the purchasing process. So hopefully we could get these 4 pieces of equipment that are rather expensive and rather large by the beginning of the fall. So it's pretty excited about that.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions so far? Comments?
Can the GAC get can you email that PowerPoint to us?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
pretty good start to the year. If there's no other questions or comments for Troy on the update, we can go into the RFP update.
All right. So we've been working on this draft, and I'm going to share with you this document. Do you guys see this?
Not yet.
Let me give it another try.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. So it's a rather lengthy document, and a lot of it is the legalese and the common items that are in every kind of RFP that we put out. So this is still a draft. A little bit of a timeline as we're going through this.
Has it opened up yet? We just saw the document you clicked on, but we haven't seen it. Oh, the PDF open.
Troy, all I'm seeing is your Windows screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try again. You see that, right?
Yes.
Briefly,
There we go.
About that one.
there you go. It looks like a document.
Yeah, this is the one. Okay, I had it on the wrong screen. All right, so it has not gone out yet. Like I mentioned, we wanted to share this with you guys, and this is still a draft. So kind of doing some backwards planning. If this was to happen, and if everything was agreed upon, we found a good third-party operator, the idea would be to pass over the operations January 2nd. So backwards planning, something I learned in the Army, where you want to go, and then you plan backwards to get there. So we'd have to negotiate the contract sometime in November, December. Sometime October, November, we would want to evaluate the bids that come through. That means we need to have them out there for 3-4 weeks, and then actually put it out. So we want to put it out sometime end of July. And so we're pretty close. Here is a table of contents of what that looks like and what's in the actual request for proposal. The biggest items is the scope of work, and I'll kind of go over that, and we'll see if you guys have any questions. Like I said, there's a lot of information here that is very standard that they put in here, but a little bit of background about each one of the courses, a little bit of background about how they begin and how they operate, so they can see that. And obviously, whoever's going to be responding to this is going to do their research as well. So here are the project objectives. And the number one, I think that's we've all talked about, is provide an affordable array of recreation, educational, competitive, and other golf activities broadly appealing to this community. And so this is really focusing on this idea of affordability. Maximize the use of the courses, expand the usage of the golf system. So these are all the really big objectives that we want to work on. Some of the other ones that I think that are really important is improve the course conditions and retain the tradition of the quality of the courses, develop leagues, tournaments, food and beverage, and other revenue streams, create a strong system of communication with stakeholders and operators. So one of the things that we really want to make sure is that the stakeholders are represented in this, and we anticipate that some type of advisory group or interest group would be involved with working with the third-party operator. So some things in here, we don't have dates yet because we haven't fully mapped out the calendar yet. So here's the scope of work. Basically, it's just the management and operations of the facilities, turf management and facility maintenance, golf professional services, food and beverage sales and services, golf merchandise sales and services. We would want to make sure that they have experience in these areas. So we're looking at people that have marketing experience, customer service experience, pro shop operations. So those are all things that we're going to be judging and looking for. So a little bit more about the proposal terms. Again, we don't have the dates in here yet because we don't have the date we're going to kick off yet. But like I mentioned, backwards planning, sending this out sometime into July gets us to where we can probably, if, and I keep saying if this does come to fruition, that we hand over keys January 2nd. So I think this is a really important part, this evaluation criteria. We want to look at their experience, and so we're asking for certain pieces of experience. And here is the scoring criteria that we have so far. It kind of blends over a couple pages. So we want to know what fixed costs that they're expecting us to pay, if any. Obviously, the more financially advantage it is for the city, the more points they're going to get. The firm experience, the proposed staff qualifications, with that, their knowledge and experience of golf, the operations. We want to see how they're going to demonstrate first-class quality and meeting those goals and objectives that we had set up earlier. Another item that's kind of in here as well that kind of bleeds over to this next page is environmental sustainability. So we want to make sure that they know what they're doing in regards to taking care of the courses. Another item for criteria is the customer service and the community outreach, which I talked about earlier. We want to make sure that they have some kind of plan in place that they're going to be engaging with our customers. We want to see what kind of marketing plans they're going to put together to leverage the quality of the courses, increase facility rentals, and basically just increasing the revenue altogether without having increasing the prices or without changing the major aspects of how golf is operated. We want to see their financial sustainability and capability. This is kind of rated a little bit lower because we would gather that anybody who's going to be putting in a bid and has these experiences should be able to have the financial backing of this. Another item is the use of technology as we are ever changing. We've seen this within the Parks and Recreation Department. We've also seen this in golf, how much technology is really impacting everything from our point of sales to our maintenance. Automation of our irrigation is going to be crucial in the future. So a transition plan is something that we want to see as well. And then this EBE and DBE is pretty standard. We're looking for these folks to give us some opportunities for equal employment for some of the other minorities or what kind of minority points they might be able to get. So that's pretty standard in any of our criterias. So as I mentioned, the timeline is not set yet, but going through that backwards planning, I think I explained what we're looking for. And these are all the steps that we kind of have to go through. So the release of the RFP, there's a pre-proposal phone conference or video conference, then the delay or the deadline for the proposal, any kind of changes of the agenda, that needs to go out to any and all of the bidders. We need their qualification statements. We need, then we're going to do an announcement of the short list. We'll have them come do a walkthrough. There'll be a deadline for any more questions. Then we're going to get a sealed phase 2 proposal. Then there's going to be a review by staff, and what should be in here as well is going to be stakeholders as well. So I would imagine that we would have somebody from the Golf Advisory Committee on that selection and screening committee. So we want to make sure that there's that opportunity. Then there's the notifications, and then there's the contract negotiation, and then there's the final approval from council. And then, like I mentioned, management begins January 1st, actually January 2nd, because January 1st is a holiday for everybody. So those are all the hoops that we have to jump through, and that takes a while, but I think we got a good plan for that. So right now we have the contract period and payment terms. So we're looking 1 year with the possibility of renewal options and not to exceed a total of 5 years. We'll see what we get with that. There's always seems to be a pushback with that because some companies always want to contract for longer periods of time, but that could be something that could be changed in the negotiations. So these are just some of the items that if they don't provide these pieces of information, they might be disqualified. But these are some of the high points of some of the things that we expect in regards to their qualifications and their abilities. So those that get selected for the second round of interviews will be needing to see what kind of management plan that they're going to provide us. Marketing plan, operations plan, finance plan, their compensation proposal, what maybe they expect us to compensate them for any amount or maybe not. So we want to see what all those plans are going to be, and that's going to be part of the final review. And then these are just some of the basic forms that they have to fill out. We provide these items in regards to the current inventory. It's not in this document because this is a draft. We provide them some background in regards to some of the nearby golf courses, and so these are all just items for their information. And so we'll provide them our current cost per round, any current contracts that we have, we'll share with them, and that one that we have right now is with Coca-Cola, and I think we have a couple maintenance contracts as well. And then this is more of the nuts and bolts of the scope of the management services. So these are some of the things that we're going to ask them to make sure that they respond to. And as they talk about fees and prices, we're going to need their justification behind all that. So again, a little bit more about reporting. We want to see their annual reports that they have in regards to the annual marketing plan, the annual business plan, what kind of dollars that they're bringing in per round. So we want to see what those are going to be. That's going to be expected that they're going to provide those pieces of information. So in the buildings, we have Exhibit H, and I don't think we have the details on that, but we put together in regards to expectations of the buildings and how to maintain them. We have a lot of that information already. Sorry about that. little bit more information that we want to get from their marketing perspective and their personnel that they're going to be providing, what kind of security they're going to be providing, um, their equipment, some ideas in regards to turf management. We have a whole section on turf management and golf course management as well in regards to the courses themselves. Most of the stuff is just really kind of basic stuff of what you expect in regards to the evaluations, the emergency maintenance provisions, what we can do and what they will expect them to do, equipment, materials, and supplies, what they are going to be providing in the pro shop. It gets pretty detailed, all the way to the driving range, junior golf program, the things that we really expect them to provide. Here's some items in regards to food and beverage, hours and operations, and how they're going to manage the golf cart fleet. Some more items in regards to the evaluation of the operations, what's going to be satisfactory and what's not in regards to maintenance and care of the facilities. Any kind of construction, remodeling, or special projects has to be authorized by the city first, but there's some expectations that they're going to have to do some special projects on each one of these golf courses. Of course, they're going to have to carry some permits and licenses, everything from food handling to alcoholic beverages. So they need to make sure that they have all those permits in place.
Troy, how
Yes.
similar or dissimilar is this RFP to the one that was a few years ago for MAC?
Very different because the one from MAC was in regards to selling the golf course. And so it was very broad, really didn't have any of these items other than saying that we're going to put a moratorium that it has to stay as a golf course and we expect them to operate it as a golf course. Other than that, there was really no direction or expectations built into that RFP because it was going to be put out for sale.
Okay.
So completely different in regards to the outcomes and completely different in regards to expectations of operation. This is extremely detailed, and some of the exhibits aren't even in this draft. Really kind of dictates and tells us or tells them what we expect, so that there's standards that we can hold them to. You know, we want to make sure that one of the items in here, one of the exhibits tells them exactly what to do in regards to the height of the grass, how often that we expect them to mow, what we expect for each one of the bunkers, tree care, how to fertilize, how to aerate, you know, all those things are built into a lot of this stuff. So if they're not meeting the standards.
You've made a lot of progress on this in the last month.
Yeah. So, you know, all these things of what we expect have been built in here. So, but I think it's pretty standard for what we can expect from anybody. What I think is really important is the criteria that I shared earlier about how we're going to rate them. And I think that's coming up here. These items, I think, are what's really kind of important is the scoring criteria. So the other items, like I mentioned, we've taken them out of our manuals. We've researched other golf courses. I've talked to other golf course operators and asked them all kinds of things about standards and operating standards, and we've been able to build that in. But this is something that we came up with in regards to what's important for evaluating each one of the submissions. So I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I see Richard has his hand up.
Yeah, just wanting to know, in the RFP, is it what kind of authority are they going to have for hiring people? What happens to existing employees under the RFP? What kind of authority do they have to raise rates, to decide how things run? Do they have to get permission to make any changes? I mean, how does that all work within the aspect of the RFP?
So a big part of this is they're going to be operating the golf courses as a third-party operator. So they're going to hire their own staff. They're going to have their own systems in place in regards to accounting. They're going to have their own point of sale system. They're going to have their own communication system. So basically all the overhead items that we are dealing with, they have to absorb it and operate it. They're going to get the equipment to maintain the courses, but then they're going to have to maintain all that equipment as well. So they're going to do their own hiring. They're going to do their own maintenance and operations of the courses. Now, in regards to the fees that our customers are going to pay, the expectation is that they're going to give us some kind of proposal, but with that is going to be the expectation it's going to meet all the same criteria that we have right now. We want affordable golf. We want a golf system that's going to be sustainable, but also putting money back into the courses. So we've done a lot of work, and like I have some homework to do for next month, and we're trying to make sure that we have the right price points. They're going to have to come up with that as well. So we want to see what that is, and then if there's any changes, there's in the RFP, if there's a certain amount of change, if it's like a 10% change or 20% change, obviously that has to go to council. It might be something that's built into the contract that says, hey, you know what, we can give you guys latitude of a 2% change, but anything beyond that, we need to take it to our advisory folks and then eventually to council. So those are some of the contractual things that we will talk about in the negotiations. But I think that's kind of the philosophy that we're looking at. Niles,
Oh, sorry.
Niles has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Troy. Is this going to be the committee? Is today this presentation? Is this the extent at which you're going to be able to share this RFP with us, or when it's done, are we going to be able to see it in its entirety, have an opportunity to read it?
I was planning on sending it to you after this meeting so you guys can look at it.
Okay, great. That's all. Thanks.
Yep. Now, it is a draft, so I want to make sure you guys know that as well. And so there's opportunities within the next 2 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks for us to make some changes. The other part of it too is this is somewhat confidential. Obviously it's a draft, but I wouldn't want to share this with any of the folks that are going to be bidding, because then they're going to have an unfair advantage of knowing what's in here ahead of time. So we need to be really careful with that. So
I was going to mention that too, Troy. I think that's real important on our part, that we not discuss this with fellow golfers and outside this committee.
Hey, Troy, so to that point, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to jump. I just think it's relevant to that point. And you may have touched on this. If so, I apologize. What's the go live date? As far as, like, obviously you don't have a final draft. This is a work in process. Do you have a set date for go live? Send it out to X number of people. They're now, eyes on it and ready to start working.
I want to do that by the end of July.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So going back to our backwards planning, handing the keys over in January 2nd. Got to take it to council. In fact, it was, you'll see it in there, that whole list of items that we have to go through. It's actually down here. Here you go. So what you're talking about is the RFP release date. But going backwards planning, the management begins January 2nd. So all these items have to happen in this order. And this is right here, if I would put in here a July 29th date. So the release somewhere around there. But then all these items have to be filled in. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay. But yes, going back to, like I mentioned, it's a somewhat confidential document. It's not the end of the world. It's not like anything in here is super secret or anything unexpected, but it could have an impact if somebody wants to file a complaint and say, Troy Houtman Management Company got this before Cameron Chris Management Company got this, and Troy Houtman had a chance to get this ahead of time. And so that's why we need to be really careful about not sharing this with anybody, because it could really jeopardize the whole system. Okay. Nancy, you have a question.
Is it kosher or whatever to get references as far as like the firm experience? I mean, they can tell us all their experience and their great qualifications, but is in this a request for references of other courses they've managed and such? Most definitely. I think there is a section in here that specifically asks for those, and it also comes out of the experience that we're asking and that they're supposed to document. So we could go back to those other courses and ask. So yes, that is hugely important, and those references will be checked. Okay, great. Yeah. Niall?
Is my hand still up?
All right.
My hand should be lowered.
There you go. Okay. Like I mentioned, I'm going to send this to you guys. And the other part of it too is you guys really shouldn't be talking to each other about it as well. So if there's a particular question or yet a suggestion, please make sure that you share that with me, and I will get back with you. And like I mentioned, this is a draft. I'm going to have something that's a little bit more current, and I'll probably send that out later on. Well, it's getting a little bit late, so I might send it out tomorrow. All right.
Anything else for Troy? Questions, comments on the RFP? If not, we can move on to the presidential update. I don't have an update. I'm playing some golf course right now. It looks pretty good. So that's my update for the day. Yeah, I'm looking forward to delving into that RFP a little bit. And certainly if anybody has any questions, please go through Troy and try to keep it as confidential as possible.
Another thing I just want to remind you guys, this also has given us an opportunity to evaluate ourselves. And so as we've been going through this, we've been looking at some things that we need to make some improvements on. The other part of it too is once we get the responses from those that want to bid, it'll be really interesting to see what those are and compare them to our operation. And at that point in time, we can kind of look at and say, make an evaluation as to, are they competing with us? Is it a better opportunity, or is continuing what we do still a better opportunity? So just because we are asking these folks for their bid doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to take it. At that point in time, we can definitely go back and compare their bid with our operations and see what works best.
I have one question for the president, for the chairman.
Yes, sir.
Eddie, what
Yes,
hole
sir.
are you on?
I am on 3 right now. Just pumped a drive to about 15 feet. So playing the whites though. So.
There was one
You
more.
outdrove me.
One more item I want to share with you guys, and we've been working on some volunteer programs for the department, but what we really want to do is do some volunteer programs for golf. And so far, we've had 20 people sign up for volunteer maintenance, and we're going to start at MAC, and that's going to start in July. We're going to use these volunteers to help us with some of our maintenance, and so it's going to be interesting how we do this, and I think we're going to give them some small discounts for rewards, but we'll see how this works out. But being that we are short-staffed, it's great to see this interest of these golfers wanting to pay back and help volunteer at the courses. So pretty excited about that. Even though it's 20, that's 20 people we didn't have before. I think it's going to get bigger.
Awesome. Okay, guys, if there's nothing else that we need to cover today, we can go ahead and adjourn.
Don't want to keep you from your layup there, Eddie.
All good. All good. You guys
All right.
enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you and goodbye.
See you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, bye.
That was funny.